Well, hello, Chuck.
Hey, Dave. How's everybody doing?
Good. I want everybody to meet Chuck. He's a brand new tech that I invited to the meeting so he could see who's part of the club.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Mike.
David, I ordered that radio you said and the power supply. They're on back order, but they said by the month.
Okay, great. We'll wait on the mail. Let me know when you get it.
What'd you order?
The Gazzy, what was it, Dave? 8 or FT991A.
Oh my. Boy, starting big. Okay, make us drool. Thank you.
FT991A. That's good shot. And Rick KQQ. I did get your mail. Thank you.
Sorry, just woke up.
I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning, could not fall asleep. I'm dead right now.
Well, you look pretty alive for being dead.
This is my new tablet now I got going here.
Dead man slouching. I can't say walking, he's sitting.
Dead
Are
man
you-
down the hills.
Are you sure he's sitting?
Covering.
Asleep now.
All right, just a reminder, everybody, you are live on YouTube along with live on Zoom. So, just want to make sure that you are aware of that. We're still got a bunch of people connecting, so we'll get started here in a few minutes.
I meant to ask, Chuck, what is your amateur radio call sign that's going to go with that radio and power supply?
Kilo Oscar 4 Oscar Romeo Kilo.
ORQ. KO4ORQ. And 4ORQ. Oh, this is going to be fun. Well, congratulations.
I'm trying to change it to a vanity call sign, and I tried to go through the FCC website and do that, but I haven't heard any response from them yet. So we'll see.
It's
Okay.
going to take probably a few weeks before it actually shows up if you actually did it online.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, a friend of mine got his call, and I went up to help him change it to a vanity. It took about a week or so before it actually showed up in the database. It's not instant.
Yeah, I remember my tech license. It was
They told me 19 days for mine, and it wasn't until day 19 mine showed up finally.
Wait
when I
till
got my
last minute.
tech license. It was only a few hours.
got my vanity back in '96. I forgot how long it took. That's when they opened it up to extras first. Anyway.
Hey, Bob. Bob in.
Yo.
Just let you know you need to turn your microphone up some.
Is this any better this way?
Yes.
How about right about now?
Yeah.
Had a volume
It
control.
sounds like you're like 10 miles from the microphone.
Yeah, I noticed when I started talking, my little square didn't come up. So okay, I got it full volume on the bottom here. Is it okay now?
Yeah, we thought your mic was on the other side of the lake.
Well, this darn new Surface Pro thingy is garbage. Oh. That's good, Michael. It is the i7, by the way.
I can't get the tune. What's the tune?
Huh?
Nobody's hearing that. Must be me.
No, it's Bobby throwing up AC.
Oh, okay. I thought he wanted us to sing along. Give us a few hums.
Yeah, no, I heard it. I thought somebody was like planning, checking out the sound equipment for a concert or something.
I got 27. Good.
Somebody has a loud hum.
Yeah, it's AC. It's either Bob or Dennis.
I'm gonna mute me, see what happens here.
It was you.
Bob.
Hang on. And now I'm working on the microphone in the computer itself. How's that?
Holy crap. That's better.
Okay.
Much
It is.
more.
That's what, yep.
I
Much,
tried
much
it.
better.
I said it. I got to go up on YouTube and listen to that then.
All right, guys, we're going to get started. Mr. Bob Heil is here this evening with us. But here in a second, we're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll go over a couple of things. We'll introduce Mr. Heil. And then as people come in, we'll allow them to join. And we'll get started. So let me share my screen here for a second. Make sure I do this right. Oh, got to make it wave. There we go. All right. If everybody wants to repeat after, oops, I hear somebody coming in. Michael, you got that?
I got it.
Okay. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, guys. All right, we've got a couple of things. Let me just go around real quick and introduce the current board members that are in the room. Of course, my name, for those, especially anybody that's new, my name is John Knott. My call sign is N4JTK. I am the president of the Orlando Amateur Radio Club and have been president for 5 or 6 years now, maybe longer. I forget now. It's been a while. So welcome to everybody, anybody that's new, that's either on Zoom with us or actually on YouTube. And as a reminder to everybody, we are on YouTube right now. So if you are a little nervous about that, you don't have to have your video running if you don't want to. But you are being live streamed over YouTube. With us also tonight is Michael Cauley. His call sign is W4MCA. He is the vice president of the Orlando Amateur Radio Club, and he is the Hamcation general chairman. Michael, want to say hello? Oh,
Hello, everybody.
Also with us tonight is Secretary of Orlando Amateur Radio Club, Bob Nucero. His call sign is W4KBW.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our meeting this evening.
All right. Our treasurer is Anna Groh, KM4JVE. Anna?
Good evening, everybody.
Director Dean Grow, who is with her, his call sign is KG4TWJ.
Good evening, all, and I'm also the IT chairman for Orlando Hamcation.
Yes, please, if you are, I'm sorry, I should mention that. If you are with Hamcation, also please state what your position is with Hamcation. Director James Dool, N0XIA.
Hello, hello, hello. One of the directors and forum chairperson.
All right. Director Tony Darnell, his call sign is KK4VRP.
Good evening, everybody. Tony. Have a good evening. The co-chair for Hamcation. Sorry, lost it there.
Not a problem. Director Frank Gergitz, KC9GNQ.
Good evening, everybody. I'm also the on-site ticket chairman for Orlando Hamcation. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, and our Director Bob Cumming, W2BZY.
Hi, I'm Bob Cumming, W2BZY, past president, almost as long as John's been around, and also commercial co-chair with John for Hamcation.
I don't see connected at the moment is Director Frank Tagliani. I don't see him with us at the moment. Frank, are you on here by chance?
No, he's away this week. He won't be at the meeting.
Okay. Wasn't sure if he still joined us or not. So appreciate it. Frank is on vacation. Lucky guy. All right. So just want to sit there and say welcome to everybody again. And we'll sit there and get started. So tonight we're going to allow our presenter go first. We want much time as possible for Bob Heil. Bob is welcome to stay throughout the meeting, even after past his presentation, but sometimes he has other presentations to do also. So we'll go into election results after the presentation. Please hold your questions for Bob till the end of the presentation, and we'll make sure that everybody has plenty of time to ask questions. And for those of you guys who are watching on YouTube right at the moment, just make sure you type your questions into the chat window, and we'll monitor the chat window and make sure that Bob is aware of what is being asked there also. So without further ado, I do want to sit there and say, please welcome Dr. Bob Heil, K9EID. Bob, along with his wife, Sarah, own Heil Sound. Bob was first licensed in 1959. And besides all aspects of amateur radio and developing and manufacturing great microphones for hams and musicians, Bob likes to play the organ, and he likes to do kit building, especially the Pine Board project. Hamcation is proud to have Bob and Heil Sound as a vendor, and please welcome Bob to this month's OARC meeting. Bob, the floor is yours.
John, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the invite. We'll say hi to Michael. Michael, haven't seen you for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, golly. Oh, it's been something. I do think that one good thing came from COVID was being able to do these Zoom presentations. This could be, we're right at under 200 since last March. And it's just wonderful. I'm doing them in Australia, the UK, but all across America, almost every night of the month. I'm so thrilled because we get to share some of the science of this hobby, and that's what we're all about. First of all, I want to ask you, how much time do we have, John?
You have as much time as you need.
Well, if I want to do the entire thing, it runs up about 90 to 100 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We usually run to about 9 o'clock, usually anyways, and we just have some elections results to go over and a couple things with field day. So
yeah, well, I think it'll be worth it. We'll carry on. Go into some of my history here. It's kind of fascinating because ham radio is intertwinkled with all of it. I started when I was 10 years old playing the accordion. A couple of years later, my parents bought me a B3 Hammond organ. They are not wealthy people, but they did that for me. And I worked very hard teaching myself, listening to George Wright records and so on. In 54, I started my professional career. I started playing in a restaurant, making more money than my teachers. It was quite crazy. 2 years later, I became the organist at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. Now, why I take it time to tell you the guys this, that organ had not been played in 20 years. And the organist there, Stan Can, he tapped me to help him substitute play, but it hadn't been tuned or voiced in 20 years. And this was magnificent for me. I didn't know it at the time, but tuning is not a big deal. Anybody can tune the octaves, but it's harmonically listening to the one beside. They all had to have the same value. If you voiced them with a little muffled, then they all should be that way. If they were a little bright, it was an amazing thing because I learned how to listen. Listening is a mental process, and a lot of people don't know how to listen. They only hear. And that was such a thing for me. I didn't realize it was going to be the basis of two of my careers. Well, in 1956, I also became a ham radio operator. One of my high school chums got a license. So we went to Walter Ash in downtown St. Louis and bought a Harvey Wells, an SX99, and an RME converter. That was a converter for 6.2 and 220. And it allowed me to get on 6 meters with that Harvey Wells. I was a technician for 17 years. I had no desire to listen any lower. And you guys and gals will say, well, yeah, it's kind of crazy. If you weren't there in those days, then what I'm about to tell you, you really can't believe it. 6 meters was open all the time. 24/7. It was amazing. The bands are crazy because that was the start of the big sunspot cycle. We've never had one like that since. And my little Harvey Wells got me all over the place. I was working Europe, Cuba, and just going crazy. It was so much fun. But one night, I'm tooling around on the band with my SX99, and I heard the worst signal I ever heard. It was all distorted. I'm going, what is this all about? And I listened again next night, same kind of frequency. I thought, what is this? So remember, I've only been on the air 2 weeks. I punched the BFO button. Bingo. A voice came out of there, and I rocked the dial and cleaned it up a little. It was some sideband stuff that I'd been reading about. I was reading QST, CQ, and all those magazines like crazy. I thought, whoa, on 6 meters, huh? Well, that's exactly what I was hearing. Every night I would come on about 7 o'clock and I would work K0DGE. He was so thrilled that I would talk to him because nobody had figured out he was on sideband, and they all had like Gonset communicators and receivers that didn't have BFOs. It was all AM. So we started conversing, and I would help him as he's building what we found out later, one of the very few first single sideband transmitters for 6 meters. And it was really fun for me because I was helping him, learning a little bit what he was adjusting. I told him I'd come into St. Louis 3-4 times a week and I'd play at the Fox. And he said, well, stop by and see me sometime. So I rolled up in front of the address he gave me. It was KMOX radio. Larry Burroughs was the chief engineer of CBS KMOX. He took this little kid under his wing. I mean, I had just turned 16, and it was just unbelievable when I look back at those days. And I said, Larry, would you build me one of those sideband transmitters? That sounds really neat. Nope, can't do it. I'm going to teach you how. And he did. We started off by going to Walter Ash again, buying a Central Electronics 10B. That was the first commercial single sideband transmitter. If we had a trivia contest, by the way, and you would say, who brought single sideband to ham radio first? Oh, you'd probably all say Art Collins. Nope, he was 6 years late to the party. It was Wes Shum of Central Electronics. I built that from a kit. And I'd take it by KMOX occasionally while I built it to make sure it was okay. And I let him fire it up, and it worked. Amazing. Well, then he had me go buy a grid dip meter, and I learned how to wind a coil for 6 meters. And we built a 36 megacycle oscillator using a 6U8. We placed a 9 meg crystal. We had to, of course, with the grid dip meter, we had to wind a 36 meg coil. What do we got? 36 plus 14, bingo. I was on single sideband. And it was pretty lonely for a while, but the station grew like crazy. I had to have the Dream receiver, the NC300, when it came out. I'd only been into the hobby a year or so and built a Heathkit Seneca when it came out, and so on and so on. It was just fascinating times. I had these loving parents, allowed me to do anything, but again, I was able to pay for all this stuff. Well, I got into antennas. I was fooling around with antennas. I figured I'm going to do this right. So I put up a 110-foot Roan. Well, I didn't do it, but K9 SGD, who was a Motorola dealer down the street from us there in Marissa, Illinois, and K9 EBA, he was a construction guy, and he had booms and cranes and all that. They put the tower up, made sure it was guide properly, and it was fascinating to watch him put this 25G together as it went up. But I'd heard about this new antenna. You'll notice that Telerex antenna is 36 foot long, but none of the elements are either vertical or horizontal. They're kind of skewed. Well, it was the new spiral array. And what the deal was, Telerex thought, and they were proper about this, our signals do not stay in the plane you think they are. They create, by atmosphere and phasing, they change polarity several times before they get to the listening antenna. This corrected some of these fading. The QSB was quite interesting. I also, on the other side of the house, put up a 50-footer. Joe, K9 SGD, he gave me a TA33. He said, you need to get your general, and you need to do this. And well, I used it. I didn't get on low freaks. I listened a little bit. Didn't intrigue me. All the experimenting was coming on to 2 and 6 meters. Those are two 36-foot long, 15 element Telerex. But notice, I did one horizontal and one vertical. And then down in the station, I had phasing coils, and I was playing with different switching arrangements. It was pretty fascinating what you could do with phasing. We're going to learn a ton about that here in a little bit. Trust me. Well, in 1959, I bought a 6-and-2 Thunderbolt. I built it from a kit. Again, Larry Burrows helped me, warning me to respect the high voltage. And as you see, I was a building fool from almost day one. And we put this thing together. So you'll see the central electronics above my head there. That was pretty fascinating to have 1.5 kilowatts on 6 meters and 2 meters. Well, I get a call one day from Bob Drake. He said, you the guy that's got that kilowatt on sideband 6 meters? I said, yes, sir. He said, we'd like to invite you to our club meeting. We do an annual meeting, and it's all about papers, technical papers. So if you could bring some diagrams or maybe pictures, we would love to have you join us. Where was that? It was Dayton, Ohio. It was one of the first hamventions in the Biltmore. They had taken all the furniture out of one of the floors. They had the Collins room, the Hallicrafter room, the Drake room, Central Electronics, Mosley, Telerex. They were all there. But what was more fascinating for this little kid was these are guys that I had read about in the magazines for 3 years. And it's like, wow, they were celebrities to me. I was fascinated. I give my speech. I also found out there that the ARRL guys had checked on this. I didn't know they did it, but they told me I was one of the first 10 on single sidebound 6 meters in 1958 when we did that. A guy from the UK was there with his beautiful British accent, and he said, I would like for you to join us. we want to do an experiment with a 2-meter antenna, and we're looking for somebody with a lot of power. And so they sent over 128 elements on 2 meters. And this was another fascinating thing. Joe Hall and K9 EBA and K9 SGD, of course, they helped me put up. We had a spare lot beside our house, and we put up a 40-foot. That was a Roan RG20. They don't even make it anymore. We had one for a boom, one for the tower, and there were 2 prop pitch motors that they helped me build and put into there so we could point it to the moon. I didn't know what was coming, but we did a lot of fun things. Well, I also in 61 built the first transverter for 6 or 2 meters. It was switching. So now I had a kilowatt of sideband on 6 and 2 meters. And I had a 75A1 that Larry Burrows he had modified it. We built some converters for it using new Vistors and some of the brand new Vistors. It was fascinating stuff, I got to tell you. Well, I got hired by CQ Magazine in 62 to write a column. This is how rare sideband was. It was a place for VHFers to experiment. I loved VHF. It was just fascinating because we were all explaining to each other what we built, how we built it, how we got there, all kinds of things that I would put into the article each month from guys that would write in. A lot of pictures. I also wrote for another magazine called VHF Amateur, and there I built I hit the cover award of that. There was it was a 2-meter transverter, and only had 3 tubes and about 10 resistors and 6 or 8 capacitors. It was very simple, but you had to have a grid dip meter, of course. But we just kept building and building and building. Well, in 1959, I also, with all this activity going on, I got a job at the Holiday Inn in St. Louis out at the airport. It was the largest Holiday Inn in a chain. There were 600 rooms on 1 floor. And they had a 4-star restaurant there, a German restaurant. And I was hired. I played 6 nights a week for 6 years. And I built a pipe organ in the restaurant. We built it at Wick's Pipe Organ, which was very close there, Highland, Illinois. And the pipes were all behind glass. All the instruments you see on the piano, I used solenoids from pinball machines. And they all operated from the keys, just like a real pipe organ in the theaters. So did the piano play. The marimba, you can't see that, the xylophone, all that. And I played for 6 years. Well, I'd been playing since I was 14 professionally. So, I had to cool it a little bit. So I opened a music shop in my little town of Marissa. That was 50 miles southeast of St. Louis. My parents had a men's clothing shop and shoe store. That's him down there you can see him in the white shirt standing by the Ford car. That was Mom and Dad's Bob shop. Well, I started this music shop. I got a Hammond organ franchise. I knew Hammond organs backwards, forwards, but I didn't know anything about the other kind of music. Believe it or not, it's hard to believe when you hear the rest of my story. I hardly knew who the Beatles were when they came out because I wasn't listening to that. I was listening to George Wright, Jesse Crawford, Lynn Larson, Stan Can, all these great theater organists. Well, when I opened the store, I was selling Hammond organs. I got a franchise and I was dissecting them, built them so the guys could carry them around. They were a lot lighter that way. Built 3 manual ones, all kinds of stuff. But at the same time, bands discovered there was this guy with a soldering iron in Marissa. One day, a kid came in to me and he said, "You fix things here?" And I said, "Yes, sir. What you got?" "I got an amplifier and it's broke." "Oh, okay." I'd never seen a guitar amp. And so he turned it upside down. "Hey, wait a minute. It had a pair of 6L6s and a 5U4. Guess what? That's in my beloved Harvey Wells, which I still have. Used it this morning on my AM net. All the other stuff, that's all AM, and I'm on that too. But I knew that circuit very well. And hams don't throw anything away. I still had 5U4. I still had 6L6s. And the screen resistors. I figured if he took these out because he tried to make it go to 12 and it only went to 10, aha, I was right. But in about 20 minutes, I had him fixed up. He was, oh man, you didn't even have one of them schematic things. No, I didn't have one of those schematic things. Well, I was renting Hammond organs to the arena, the blues hockey arena and basketball arenas and stuff, because a lot of groups from Nashville came in. The rock groups hadn't started yet, really, in 1966, 67. And so I would rent these organs, but oh my gosh, your PAs are terrible. Little bitty columns that were put up back in the 30s. So I started building sound systems, big ones, those large cabinets that two of my road guys are standing on there. They came from the Fox. The Fox tossed them out one time and gave them to me shortly after I opened the store. That's just one side of the PA we build. Against it. Had our own fiberglass shop to build those horns. And a lot of Nashville stars were coming up to Kiel Auditorium, and they would love the PA. And I was making some headroom for all of those guys. Well, I get a call one day from the Fox Theater, 1970. Hey, Heil, you still have those big speakers I gave you? I do. He said, did they work? I said, yes, sir. He said, you better talk to this guy. He said, we have a disaster here. What's the matter? Well, this group came in here today, set up for their sound check, and the PA's not here. I said, what do you mean your PA's not there? Well, the story is, this group, their sound man was on probation out of the state of California. They weren't supposed to be on tour. He wasn't. But they thought they'd squeeze in this little tour, New Orleans, St. Louis, and New Jersey. Okay. Well, the DEA and the FBI heard about it. So they go to New Orleans and they sit in the back row of that show that night, that first show on the tour. After the show, the band, they come on to St. Louis. They didn't have cell phones. Owsley. Anybody know that name? If you're historians of all of that, you would. Owsley was one of the inventors of LSD, and he owned all of the sound equipment. For who? The Grateful Dead. The Fox stagehand handed the phone to Jerry, and I started telling him I had these Olsen Benz, JBL drivers, Macintosh amps. And I never forget, he stopped me. You got Macintosh amps? I said, yeah, I do. I didn't know. Nobody at that time was using things like that. The PAs were pretty loose. And it was a historic night. You can go to Google and put the night rock and roll sound was born. There was a journalist there. And this journalist wrote this article, and I never met him, but he was right on about the famous show, February 2nd, 1970. I became very, very good friends with Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir, and all the guys. But what's interesting about that, I want you to know, I have never tasted beer. I have never done any kind of drugs. And for gosh sake, none of the crap that they were doing. And they respected me for that because I had a soldering iron. Pete Townsend always said, leave him alone, man. Got a soldering iron. He makes it sound good and he can drive the truck. And I did. So they were just fascinating times. But one of the very interesting and quiet parts is that while they were on, not only that tour, but back it happened another 12 years or so, Jerry, he called me one day and he said, hey, We can't pronounce ye old music shop. That's what my store was, if you remember back a couple of slides. And that was what was painted on all the cases and cabinets. We have a hard time, man, calling that ye old stuff. He said, we're just going to call you Heil Sound. Is that okay? And so it was Jerry Garcia that named my company. I know what you're thinking. Well, you could call it. No, I hadn't even thought about that. It was still ye old music. That article appeared in Billboard a couple of weeks later. All heck broke loose. Everybody was calling me because we were it. Sound systems had not reached our pinnacle. I also got very dismayed because the groups would come in pieces. One would have a Volkswagen van with some pieces, a guy would have another pickup truck or a car. They never got there at the same time. So I said, I'm going to stop this. So the businessman in me said, aha. So I leased a 40-foot semi. I had a driver that had the license. I bought an old Greyhound bus. We built 11 beds in it that we could sleep to people. That saved a lot of money. But I knew we were all going to get there at the same time. We had the lights, the sound, all the gear for the tours we were doing. And we were the first sound company to do that kind of thing. We had what you see there was the one semi. Before COVID, we've done almost all of Carrie Underwood's tours. She uses our microphones. Her tour is 16 55-footers and 9 Prevost buses, a little bit more than one. So it's grown a little bit. Golly. One of the groups that I did, their first tour, their manager called me, you the guy that got that big PA, I got to have him. My new group is really loud. I said, okay. This was their first show on the first tour that we did for them. That's ZZ Top without beards. Take another look. Oh, we've been friends all these years, Billy and all the guys, Frank. Wonderful things about all of this. And it was all because of ham radio. But kind of getting down to the end of all this, I got another call right after. Hey, we need you in Boston tomorrow. I said, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't? Well, I'm on tour with Chaka Khan, and we can't drive from Chicago to Boston after that concert. Can't do that. Well, I got to have you. And he was really defiant. I got to have you. No, I can't. I said, who are you? He said, well, we're the Who. I'm going, oh boy. Oh boy. So we got to talking, said, well, I do have a guy, a friend of mine here in Chicago. He could take off and do the rest of her tour. But how are we going to get a semi and a bus out there? He said, well, that's simple. You go out to the airport and you rent a Flying Tigers air freight and you can drive it up into their plane. And we did. It was the first time I ever rented a 747. And we did it. We saved them because they came over here after 4 years after Tommy. They hadn't been here in those 4 years. And in those 4 years, I got blamed for it. Of course we did. PAs went from little columns to what we were doing. And they came over with their little columns, and the first show was a disaster. The media, the audience were walking out, booing, screaming, all that. So they had to have my PA. That's why I figured it out after I got with them. And so we did. We were with them for 6 years after that. But it's just so interesting of all the things that happened. Pete Townsend called me. We took a year off after those 2 years. So you got to come over here. He said, I'm working on a project and I'd like for you to help me. Quad sounds big right now. And I wanted to know if you can build me a quad PA. We can move Roger's voice around the hall. What you're looking at is his studio, which is above his home in the Thames. in London that I went over to see, and oh, it was fascinating. This is where he did that. That was the introduction to Baba O'Reilly. That was done on that organ. You see him on a red chair. That's a little $900 Lowry home organ. Up in the top picture on the right, there he has it coupled to a synthesizer. That's how he did that. I was amazed because during all the times we were with him, we had a Scully, like you see down in the bottom right. We carried a Scully with us to play all these back tapes, which was very amazing. Nobody in my whole career with them ever asked about, wait a minute, there's 4 guys. Who's playing piano? Who's playing synthesizer? Who's playing banjo? Huh? Nobody ever said anything about that. Well, it was all done on tape. When I got with them, they sent me out to California, and we bought a Scully. We bought 2 of them, had road cases made, and they went with us, and they did all of the back tapes that were done in his studios. 2 channel. One of the channels had the back tape that we put through the PA. The other one was a click track that we fed to Keith Moon. Well, I was working my whole life is about timing. I have to tell you, I was so blessed. We at the time were working on a console. Nobody had ever built a console for real rock music or productions. They were all little things we'd cabbaged together. But I was working with our sister company, IES, in England. And we were just a month from finishing it. And we could add that center switching to make it 4 channels. And so we did a quad mix. It was the first one and ever was Quadrophenia. It was kind of interesting because Pete said, as I left his house that night, from the studios and stuff, he said, "You can do this." I said, "I think we can." He said, this is wild when he told me this. "You go finish building it. I will go finish writing it." He knew in his mind that we could do this in an arena. So these are all fascinating things. Well, if any of you are Who fans, you know about their drummer, Keith Moon. He should have been in an insane asylum. Really, all of us that traveled with him, we knew he was crazy. He did so many crazy things, but he was the best drummer I'd ever stood beside. Now, I always stood beside or behind Townsend's amps because if anything would go wrong, I want to know about it. And of course, the guys were mixing out in the audience, but I was up there to make sure the tapes and all that were running. I was only about 8 feet to the left of Keith Moon. I saw some incredible drumming. Well, we opened Quadrophenia. We've been working on this thing all these years. Okay. Right in the middle of the concert, we opened at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. I looked over and Keith's laying across his drums. I mean, what's he doing? Townsend came over. Of course, they kept playing. And he said, what's he doing? What's he doing? Because he did this kind of crazy stuff, but he wasn't coming back up. And if any of you know about this, this is what happened. He passed out. We had to carry him out. It was unbelievable. And they kept playing in the background. So what are we going to do now? And a kid came up from the audience and jumped on the drums and we finished the concert. Crazy, but it happened. What was he taking? Usually you take, I don't know, what is it? They take all the silly drugs. He was taking a horse tranquilizer for a 2,500-pound horse. Guess what? Knocked him on his butt. But those are the kind of things that happen. But again, it's all about ham radio that I could do all these things. I was no engineer. I got issued a gold record for those tours. I was so thrilled. But ham radio really put the nail for me. We were the first sound company to do monitors because you can't take a speaker and put it right beside a microphone. It's going to feed back. Well, I started playing with this scenario with Jerry Garcia, and we did it with 2 microphones. If you ever saw early pictures of the Dead, you'll see we had 2 microphones duct taped together on the stand. One of them fed the PA. What did the other one do? Fed the monitors. But it was out of phase. Aha! I have a great demo out this after a while. You just keep that in your mind. And we were the first company to bring monitors. You can notice Entwistle, he was standing about 800, he was 6 feet in front of about 800 watts of audio. Pete had a whole stack and a monitor in his ear. And we also, with the monitor thing, was kind of crazy, but we did monitors for Billy Graham. And that's a whole story. I was so blessed to be able to work with Billy for a couple of years. And it was all because of ham radio I could do this. But we started building things then. It was amazing. We had built a 7,000 square foot building, and my brother-in-law had a wood shop next door. He was in 5,000 square. He built all of that. We had a fiberglass shop. We had 35 people working on these production lines, building power amplifiers, mixers, speakers, and the talk box thing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we were building big, large arena festival systems also. That big speaker you see, that was an Electro Voice Patrician. It was a hi-fi speaker, the woofer in it. I built a bass amp, and I would rent it out. Every bass player in the world was wanting to rent that. And see, it was Ye Olde Music Shop. It was a great promotional thing for me because it's how people figured out who we were and where we were. But we were doing festivals, a lot of them. At that time, then we had 3 systems on the road, biggies, and we would bring them all together. You'll notice we had 2 stages in between them, and one of them we could be setting up while the other was playing. That way, we kept the troops happy. They didn't have time to go get in trouble, but some of them did. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I wrote the book. I would have so many people ask me all the time, where'd you learn all this stuff? Did you go to college? No, I hardly got out of high school, which is true. Well, where'd you learn it? Ham radio. No, I mean, like, where did you learn to do this? Ham radio. Well, you guys all know this is what we do as hams. We build things and learn things. So, it just went on and on. But the close of this for you, we did the James Gang early on and met up with this guy. And we've been very close friends ever since. WB6ACU, Mr. Joe Walsh. He pulled out of James Gang, and he wanted to do a solo act, his own band, Barnstorm. We were putting Barnstorm together in our plant in Marissa. We did that a lot. We had built a place for them to rehearse and all that. And we would put their tours together, see if it all fit into the semi okay, so on. And Joe had friends in Nashville, Bill and Dottie West. They were really great friends and country artists. He went there to record the album, his new album, Barnstorm. And they had this little box. Pete Drake was a steel guitar player that owned that studio. He had this little box with a little 3-inch speaker and a funnel on it and a piece of hose. They put it in his mouth, and when he played steel guitar, he could kind of like do weird little wah-wah things. They recorded Rocky Mountain Way with that little device. But we're putting together Barnstorm for the tour. Joe says, what are we going to do about that talk thing? They wouldn't give it to him. It was theirs. So 2 ham radio operators, what are you going to do about it? Well, what we're going to do about it is we're going to build our own. It's going to be a biggie. And so what we did is we put a 100-watt driver, had to build a high-pass filter for it, got some surgical tubing. The Heil talk box was born. I built 5 of them. I didn't know where this was going. And so away we went. And you remember this. was done with the Heil talk box, and it became quite popular. Well, Humble Pie, early on, we had done almost all of their tour in America. And one of their guitarists, when they first came over here, was a young Peter Frampton. He was only like 17. But the management pulled him out as a solo act. And D. Anthony, he was a manager for Tony Bennett, thought he should get into some of this rock and roll stuff. So he picked up Humble Pie and Peter. He called me, he said, "You make him sound good, he's going to be a star." Okay. So we were putting his Peter Frampton band together in our plant. And he had hooked up with a little gal, Penny McCall. You see, what happened? These guys would come over from the UK. They had a 6-month green card, and then they had to either go back, become a citizen, or whatever, get married. Well, in all those days prior to this, my father had about 20 homes in our little town of Marissa. He rehabbed and he was renting. And so he rented about 6 of them to rock and roll roadie guys from Humble Pie and Joe Walsh's guys. Well, Joe Walsh's tour manager lived in Marissa. He even bought a home there. We had a lot of these kids in that they would come there because they could work at the plant. I could give them a job and they had a reason to stay. Well, the manager of Humble Pie, he hooked up with Penny McCall. And they had to get married or they're going back. So I said, well, let's just have a wedding. And we did in our home. My wife and I, we threw this big hippie wedding. It was cool. Didn't last long, like most of them didn't. I get a call from her a few months later. She said, "Hey, it's Penny. I need you to send me a Christmas present. I'm with Peter Frampton." I said, "Oh, really? Okay. Don't send me a guitar. He's got a lot of them." Okay. So I sent Penny McCall a talk box. Are you writing the rest of this story? Peter and I became really dear friends to this very day. He's the only guy that can make it talk. He spent a year, they took a year off just learning the alphabet with that talk box. It was crazy, crazy times. And of course, Bon Jovi, Slash, on and on and on. There were so many others that used the talk box, but those were fun times. But I started working at KMOX. I had a show we called High Tech Heil on Wednesday nights. And KMOX was a Clear Channel 50 kW, CBS. And we covered 44 states. And we're talking all about newfangled things like, wow, there's a thing you can hold in your hands called a cell phone. Oh, okay. And CDs and DVDs and surround sound and all that. At the same time, I got into the satellite business because I had sold my sound company, got rid of all the sound stuff. I sold it and I started playing with satellite systems. Put in over 2,000 of them in Southern Illinois. There were so many people. They were 100 miles from a TV station. They didn't have TV. So we were kicking. And of course, KMOX would spread the word. But I also, because of my notoriety in that business, got hired by the Hubbard Company. Hubbard, if any of you know, boy, I could do a whole night on that family. They were very, very instrumental in very beginnings of lots of things. AM radio, they were the first television station, so on. Well, the grandson, Stanley Hubbard Jr., he bought the first license of K-band. And he sent me a 2-foot dish in 1991, and they'd send me test shots. And we would report to them as they would rotate things on the bird and so on. I also was in television in those days. on ABC, and I was able to, from the floor of the Consumer Electronics Show, when they introduced it to the public, it's here. The 2-foot dish is here. And we were the first business to install one in a home because I was very close to the company because we had done so much for them over the about 4 or 5 years. We had talked about DirecTV. That picture with the inflatables on it, they sent those down for that opening day of DirecTV. That's Heil Sound. That's the front door of Heil Sound. Of course, we've built 3 or 4 warehouses on after that, but that was a retail store for DirecTV and my home theater stuff. I was doing a lot of home theater, going to Consumer Electronics Show. Also worked with Ray Dolby because he had his ProLogic receiver, and we used that in our home theaters at the CES shows and so on, because we were building home theaters for people. We're not talking about little audio. We're talking about $300,000 rooms, Macintosh amps, and all kinds of things. This was 1987. High def television projectors with laser disc and all that. I also got into designing, and some lady sent me this picture, heard me on KMOX. Hey, what can you do with this? Well, that's what we did with it. Back behind that curtain was that. Another guy sent me this. What are you going to do? What could you do here? Well, that's what we did with it. We designed all these things. Well, so much of this, there's so much more, but I was so blessed. And it was all because of ham radio that I could do these things. And one day, my life changed big time. I get a phone call from Paul Klipsch, the father of the folded horn. He was actually the father and the inventor of high fidelity. He was the guy that brought it to the market in the late 40s. He called me, said, hey, you the guy that's got that 10,000 watt PA? I said, yes, sir. He said, I want to come and see this. I'm going, oh my gosh. He's going to cut me off at the knees, but he didn't. He flew his Bonanza up to Marissa. And oh man, all day, it's like, why'd you do this? Well, how come you did that? Where'd you learn to do that? Ham radio, really? And it just went all day. Well, he put me in his plane. That night we went back to his home in Hope, Arkansas. And the next day was unbelievable. I was blessed to become a friend and a student of Paul Klipsch. Paul guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. Now, in those days, I had to go to the library and things that Paul would send me. You guys and gals got it easy. You go to Google. But I invite you to pay close attention to what's going to happen now. I know the first part of this is pretty long, but I think it's important. Paul guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. He referred to it as the idea factory of the 1920s. Bell Labs was the consolidation of AT&T and Western Electric, which was the manufacturing arm of the Bell system. They put 4,000 scientists and engineers assigned to this newly created Bell Telephone Labs. Listen up. They were fully dedicated to researching how the human ear worked and what frequencies were most important to understand the spoken word. What was all of this about? It was about the telephone system. Here's the deal. They put the first telephone system together, and they ran 2 wires. These 2 wires went from New Jersey out to California. And every 50 miles was a relay station that kept the voltage up, the frequency up. It was all perfectly analog and flat all the way. When they turned the system on for the very first time, this is kind of what they heard. Hi there. Can you hear me? Barely. What's wrong with this? There's no articulation. What's happening? Wow, they go back and no, everything was right. What's wrong? And so they put this little deal into the hands of 4,000 scientists. And the two lead scientists were two guys by the name of Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson. What they discovered was it was not the equipment, it was the human ear. We don't hear flat. And in order to understand the spoken word, we certainly can't be flat. Also, look at that level. Up at the top, over 100 dB, it's kind of almost flat. But down here where you're probably listening right now is 15 or 20 dB a level. Gosh, all kinds of holes in it. Well, Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson really discovered something so helpful. In order to understand the spoken word, and they were dealing from 300 to 3,000, does that sound familiar? The bandwidth of 300 to 3,000? Huh? What did they discover? 2.5K is the magic spot. That's where all the articulation occurs. That's all interesting. And here it goes. I have a mixer, and the equalizer is a parametric, meaning I can change the parameters. It's not just bass and treble that's set up by some engineer somewhere, and you can't do anything but increase or decrease, plus or minus. A parametric, you can pick the frequencies and then plus or minus. Well, all I'm going to do, now pay attention here, listen up. Remember what I said about listening? It's a mental process. I'm only turning down the 2.5K. And when I do that, it's going to sound like I turned the bass up. Nope, I left it flat. Here we go. When I start lowering that 2.5K, oh my gosh, what happened to my articulation? The F and the S, they all sound alike. The P and the B, where's my articulation? Where is it? It's not there. I just turned it off. Now I'm going to turn it back on. All I'm doing is rotating from 400 cycles to 2.5K. Here it comes. You'll know when I hit 2.5K because it's in your face. Now the F and the S, the P and the B are very articulate. That was absolutely mind-boggling for me. No way did I want to be flat. We were still doing some sound reinforcement then. I reorganized all of our front end, increased to 2.5, and our system got so much better. It was more articulate, it covered better, and we could run much less power because I wasn't wasting it in the low end bass. Does this all sound kind of like familiar to you? That's why I'm here. It really ticks me off because I still have these guys, oh, need all darn EQ. We all need equalization. We all need it. You're going to argue with these guys? Come on. That's what I don't understand is that why has somebody not told me this? Why wasn't this the second question in my ham radio license? This is more important than most of the crap they feed us. I don't want to hear all that political junk they feed you. The most important, yeah, a lot of it is important, but not like this. We are communicators, and we need that articulation. And this is the proof. I just proved it to you, and we're going to prove more. And what happened after we did that was, it was just mind-boggling for me. But after 12 years, I came back. I sold everything. I came back to ham radio. I had an empty building. That was something. Got all this gear. It's where I developed the HC4s and 5s. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when I came back, all these guys and Marissa that were on CB radio were bringing me their CBs. I didn't want to know about their CB radio. However, some of them were broken and they wanted me to fix them. So I did. A few of my really close friends, I fixed them for them. But I'm looking at them going, you know what? If I could change this crystal and retune this coil, there was a chip Motorola had just come out with. It was an FM demodulator. That in about 3 parts, I could have this CB on FM. You might be ahead of me. I was the father of 10-meter FM. What happened is after I saw that and figured it out, I knew that Andy Anderson at High Gain was going bankrupt. And so I contacted him and he said, yes, I have a truckload, semi-truck of boards. They're all built, they're tested, they got all their wires ready to be placed in a chassis. I said, fine, I will buy the whole lot. And so I did. And I went to Tentec. Tentec, a lot of people didn't know this, and I missed this. I don't miss Tentec, but I missed this part of it. Across the street from them, they had a metal company, and they were building metal for a lot of people, me included. I had thousands of boxes built for them, so I miss them so much today because I got into the 10-meter F. We built kits. We called it, the company was Melco. Marissa Electronics Company. Well, Heil Sound was that was my sound company, and that was closed and gone. I didn't know where I was going. I was just a ham playing in 1980, 81, 82. I got back into that. Well, this happened, and things really began to come alive. I wrote the book, the 10-meter FM handbook. Wrote that. I think it was, where was that? Somewhere around 82. Man, we were helping guys convert CBs to 10 meters as well as to buy our kits. And it was a fascinating time for me because it had all been building. But I get back into the rest of the radio. What happened to my great Art Collins audio? Huh? What do you mean, Heil? I'd get on the air and I would hear signals like this. Hi, how you like my new Kenwood? Your new what? I'd never heard of it. Kenwood. Yeah? Yeah. I got my matching microphone. And man, I'm really kicking, ain't I? No, I can't understand what you're saying. You're all muddy and mushy. You have no articulation. What do you mean articulation? We don't need that. You don't. And so I built the first equalizer for ham radio. It's a 2-band equalizer. I fixed the frequencies at 160 on the low end. Where's the mid-range? 2.5K, of course. All you could do was increase or decrease. That's all you could do. That's all you needed to do. I wrote an article and I sent it to QST. And it became really something. I built it, all right, I wrote it as a DIY, build it yourself, had all the parts laid out for you. But some guys didn't want to build it. They wanted to buy it. So my plant had been closed for 2 years, so I opened back up a little small part of it, hired back 2 of my solder gals, and bingo, we were back in business building EQ200s. And I was very excited. I got a call I got a letter one day from a guy. It was Dr. Inouye Communications. He sent me a picture of his station. It was one of these and one of these, my gold line. I was freaked out. Whoa. This is 1999. I'm thinking of new radio line and want to use your Equalizer. Now, they could have built it. They didn't need me, but he was just checking to see if the frequency would have been right and so on. And so, as history will lay in front of you, the ICOM Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, all the way through the 7800, 7851, the 7610, the great, wonderful 7300, and I'm sure a few of you have this little guy. They just sent this to me because they need a headset for it. The 705. This is a 7300 in a little box you can hold in your hand. Plus, it's got D-Star and other things. Have you seen this? Better buy one. Battery operated, 5 watts. Oh my gosh. And he wanted me, as all, we did a lot of things for them. We've built the headset for the 5. And we also built this for handy talkies. What a disaster handy talkie microphones are. Don't even get me started. Not anymore. And is it expensive? Yeah, it's 29 bucks. Like the old junk said, I spill more than that. But it's very high quality. It's not going to have my name on it if it's not. I just decided I want to stop all this nonsense with these handy talkies not sounding good. Now the 705 really sounds great. So we're very excited to work with these companies. Well, that was 1999, and that all went down. A year or so later at Dayton, Dr. Hasegawa comes to me in my booth. I want to talk to you. I want to do it better. Really? Okay. What are we going to do? We could do parametric. Yeah, that'd be good. I said, not so fast. Why? Education. Why? I said, well, the shelving EQ I did, I designed the 2 frequencies, and that's it. All the user has to do is increase or decrease. You don't have to know where to put it. Parametric, you, the user, have to choose what frequencies the filter's on. That's where they will get in trouble. The Yaesu parametric, they went ahead and did this. And as I knew, they did have trouble. The education was not there. Their manual's terrible. There's a bunch of graphs. I can't even make it out. Get out of here. So as a consequence, most of the Yaesu owners are in default mode, and it really makes me sad. Well, in the next 60 seconds, or maybe a little more, I'm going to teach every one of you how to set up a parametric equalizer. Nothing to it. If I had a 10-year-old child standing beside me, they could do it too and don't know anything about radio. Okay, here it is. Listen up. Watch. There are 3 filters in the Yaesu that we did. 3. Each one of them have frequency, just a frequency. Level is a boost or cut, and bandwidth, audio bandwidth. Usually 2 or 3 octaves. That's not really that important to start with. Oh, now wait a minute. We have 3 filters. That means, ready for this? You have 9 controls. You don't have 2. You have 9. That's why most of them are still in the default mode. How sad. No, it's really easy. I mean, it is really easy because all you have to do is think about it. We're going to do frequency. We're going to take the first filter now. We're going to set that frequency where? 200 hertz, because we're going to roll off some of that low end. So here you go. 200. We'll do it at -3 or 4 and 2 octaves. of bandwidth. Where's this second one going to go? There is something that has bugged me all of my audio life. I don't know why, but there's something around 900 to 1100 cycles. It's a boxy sound. Take your hands and do this. That's the sound. It's a boxy sound. I want to get rid of that. And so even all of my sound systems, all of my shows we did, we would notch that 900. So we're going to set the second one at 900 minus 3, 2 octaves of bandwidth. Where are we going to put the third one? If you don't know, I have failed tonight. It's going to be 2.5K plus 8. Yeah, we want it all. Yes. It's so simple. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. Now, before you ever start with any transmitter, I don't care what it is, you have to do one thing: set the transmit bandwidth. Most of them you can set it like 1.8. Not good for voice. Sometimes maybe 2.4 or 2.9. So I always set mine at 2.9 and then go to your equalizer. But in the Yaesu, you got one more, the most important one. And most people forget it, don't know about it because it's not written in great big red letters. After you do all of your set the bandwidth, the transmitter bandwidth, set all 9 filter controls, you have to save it. There's a save button on another screen. If you don't save it, all of this work is for naught. So you see, it is just so simple. So simple. But there's one other little thing about it. All the assignment numbers change. What are you talking about? You notice that left column, you can't read these well. I need to retake that picture. All of those are assignment numbers. 101, 102, 103, but they're not the same. Each transmitter has different ones. 501, 502, 701, 702. We don't care. We don't care what they are. We care about frequency, level, width. That's all we care about of those 9 filters. And so once you do that, you're okay, because these assignment numbers change with each transmitter, but we don't care. The equalizer is the same. You set the transmit bandwidth, hit the save button. It's so important. And we've got a lot of stuff on our pages of all the other Yaesus and all of it. It's under support. It's about 50 pages of all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, all things Kenwood, Elecraft, all that. It's all there. And I'm really happy that we're able to help you, because this is a very important thing. And you'll be able to do it, really. It's not a big deal. But one of the other things, we have to learn to what? We have to learn to talk into a microphone. What are you talking about, Heil? You're a crazy man. No, you need to know how to address a microphone properly. Because I hear you guys on the air. Some of you don't. Why? Because you take a desk stand, you put it down here. Now, you remember those 4,000 scientists? You can learn a lot if you really dig into some of their stuff. Every time you double the distance of the source, you lose 6 decibel. If you double your power from 500 to 1,000 watts, that's only 3 dB, and you can't hardly hear that. But if you double this distance, you just lost 6 dB. You ought to think about this. But people don't, because they don't know this. So they get a desk stand, they put it down here. Oh, that great? No. Bill will tell him, turn it up, man. So I'll turn it up. Okay, I will. But now I sound like I'm in a roller rink. And this studio, I built this studio so it isn't reverberant, so it's not as intrusive as some of the, just a regular room. Some of these guys I think are in a bathroom. My gosh, they have a lot of echo. But you want to be close to that microphone, which means you're going to have to lean in. Or that's why in 1980, when I came back, I brought the boom into existence. It was the first time booms and all that had been brought to ham radio. I did it for me. All this stuff, that's what I do here. I'm on the air all the time, and this is how I come up with these projects. But I'm telling you what, I hear a lot of stations like this, and I hope it's not you. Because you double that distance, you're losing 6 dB. And the other thing is about plosives. What are you talking about, plosives? Every human is a little different. We exhibit air when we speak. And what happens? Air from your mouth drives the diaphragm down into the voice coil, and it'll bottom out, especially if you're doing like P's and D's and so on. And the way to get rid of those plosives is to use what we supply with the microphone. Listen up, an acoustically transparent windscreen. Don't go to Walmart and buy one of these for $1. It's not acoustically transparent. And I hear guys, oh, hey, Bill, take that stupid muff off. You're all muffled. If it changes your audio, throw it away. You want an acoustically transparent one. So when I take it off, the audio doesn't change at all. So that's all very important stuff. It's things you really need to know. And I want you to realize that these are things that I learned from the scientists. These guys are amazing. Well, in 2006, Sarah and I bought a second home in California, Seal Beach. Joe was going through some situations. He wanted me to come out. So we did. And we'd come back and forth to our hometown here at Belleville. Well, we spent a lot of time out there in the studios working with him and others. And he said, you need to build me a better microphone. Really? Why? What's wrong with that ball mic thing you got? Huh, you know what's wrong with it. I said, yeah. He said, I want to get rid of that. I said, okay. So sitting at his kitchen table in Studio City, 2 crazy ham radio operators. We started talking and putting out ideas. He said, you remember back when I was touring and we come through there in the bus on 2 meters, you turned that big array around. I never did hear you off the back. Yes. Had 28 dB up front and how much on the rear? Okay. Do that to my microphone. Because these ball mics we all use certainly doesn't have that. We hear all this stuff behind us. And he said, you should build a big microphone. Well, Shure had tried it and failed. I know that for a fact because their engineer, Bob Schuline, and I were friends for years when I was in the traveling circuits because we weren't building our microphones. Well, when I came across this and figured out how to do it, when we introduced it at a NAMM show a few years back, Schuline comes to me. He said, you tell me how you did that. And I said, oh, no. It's my secret. Kind of kidded about it. I'm going to plug it in. I got to change the gain on this thing too because it gets kind of crazy. There we go. So, what are we going to do here? First of all, Joe wanted a microphone with this large diaphragm that we figured out how to make it work that no other could. No company's ever done it. And you can move a whole 180 degrees and it doesn't change. All of our microphones do that. So you don't have to be stuck right here. But we wanted lots of rear rejection. So how are you going to do that? It's really simple for me and a lot of experimentations. When I talk in the back of this, not touching anything, it's going to be 40 dB down. 40. Here we go. Oh, it's still there. It still works, but it's 40 down. You can imagine how the guys on these stages love this thing. This and the PR30, the PR781, all came later. How did I do that? I did that because of phasing. My favorite subject that we're just about to get into, and you won't believe it when we get into it. But here's how I did it. First of all, we were the first to do a big diaphragm. Nobody's ever done one since. It was quite a little secret of how I did it. It's 1.5 inches. All the others, little ball mics, they're like 3/4 inch things. Also, they only have little 1/8 inch holes, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That's the only entrance for the rear into the bottom of their element, which would be out of phase. Well, that was stupid. You're $1 million engineers. I'm a stupid ham. Well, I know about it. Huh. Let me tell you something. Ham radio ops know a whole heck of a lot more than some of you engineers. Yeah, you got all of the figures and facts and you can name all this stuff, but when it comes to a soldering iron, you burn your hands because you don't know which end to pick up. Not all engineers. I'm just picking on a few of them I know. So here's what I did. We put that big element on top of a shock mount. And on top of I call it a signal collection tube. It's just a round tube. And I opened the entire bottom. I don't have 4 little holes. So that 360 degrees from the rear, sliding up this collection tube into the bottom of the element, which is out of phase. Bingo. There it is. And so from there forward, man, our 781, our PR30, the PR30 has become the darling of recording. It outperforms condensers. Don't get me started. And there's going to be a lot of people say, Heil, you're full up. No, I can prove it. The PR30 is gorgeous. Condensers are too sensitive. They pick up everything. They have no rejection. And they have this raspy top end that nobody cares about. Why is it there? It's almost beyond most people's hearing. Oh, it's there. But harmonically, it comes back down to where you're listening. It's terrible. We don't need that. We don't need 48 volts. We need dynamics, big dynamics, and a really great magnet that's got a lot of strength to pull it back. The transient response, the dynamic range of all our microphones are very, very good. Well, how did this happen, Heil? We're going to change. I have my favorite demonstration. You probably all have seen it before. If you haven't, sorry, you're going to see it again. I have 2 microphones. Let me get these all hooked up here. Okay, she's working. I have a Y cord. And the reason I built the Y cord is when I first started doing this some times ago, I had people telling everybody, oh, Ohio, he's just turning the gain down on that one. No, this is science that I learned from 4,000 guys years ago about phasing in and out, phase distortion and speakers and microphones, all of these wonderful things. I have one chord and dual I chord. So there is no game being played. Oh, one other thing is interesting. Remember we talked a while ago about if you double your power, you get 3 dB. Remember that? Wow. Okay. You know what 3 dB gets you? You're about to hear it. Pay attention to the screen and especially listen, mentally dissect what you're going to hear because we're going to double our power. We're going to go from 500 watts to 1,000 watts. It could be a couple of $1,000s. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. What? Do me a favor. Do this. Close your eyes. We're going to really dissect what we're hearing here. I'm going to take away, it could be a half a kilowatt, whatever. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. No. The scientists tell you the human cannot detect 3 dB. So you're running 500 watts. You don't think you need equalization. You don't think you want to talk about bandwidth. So forget it, Heil. I'll just go get me a kilowatt. Spend $2,000 of my wife's money. She don't know it. Okay. So what did it get you? Not much. Let me tell you what to do with that 2,000. This is true. I know. You go out and equalize your transmitter and do it properly. You get the right kind of microphone. It's not matching. Matching microphones are not built by the manufacturers. They're built by OEM companies, and they're all rubbish. Every one of them. One of them now costs almost $700. Are you kidding? Come on. Okay, here comes the good part. I got this little magic plug, and I'm going to put it in here. There we go. Okay. This plug is 2 to 3 and 3 to 2. No problem. Pin 3 is the 2, 2 is the 3. It's out of phase. Well, it sounds just like this one. Yeah, I know that. Absolutely. But when I talk in this one, the diaphragm goes down into the voice coil. When I talk into this one out of phase, it comes up. When I talk into both of them, which are out of phase, now watch and listen. This is really the biggie of the night. Here comes both of them. They cancel. Oh, they're still working, but not together. Wow. How come you didn't know this years ago? Whew. I would have been much better off, a little quicker, had I read this when I was getting my technician license. Something for you to think about, isn't it? I always had thought about putting up a phased array. I'd heard a lot about them, but they were always guys with a lot of money and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, we bought a home, second home down in the Ozarks in 2008. Sarah's mother moved down there, so we thought we'd go down second home. It's only a few hours from here. And I had 3.5 acres. And I thought, aha, I could build me a phased array. Well, we did that, and it was really amazing. It was very simple to do. We had two dipoles. They were 65 foot apart, 65 foot high. Had a delay line of 43 foot. And this was all great stuff. Had a switch. All that was 500 foot from my shack. And what happened there is I could switch it in or out. you could go east to west. And that's what I was working my buddies on the West Coast or East Coast from the Midwest. It was wonderful, but it certainly didn't cost me anything. I got the poles from the electric company. They gave them to me because we would go there when they cut them down, and a lot of times they'd have things just stored there. I didn't care what they did with them. And so they give them away, and it's something you think about. Go to your electric co-op company, and they will do that for you. They will give those to you. So these are things that started in my mind. What are we going to do about this thing? Let me go get this other slide. I was so entrenched in making these things work and work effectively. And it was so simple once I figured it out. Because what we had to do is we had to put up the poles, had a couple of farmer guys that helped me do this. That was pretty simple. And one had a drill. So he was drilling the holes. That was simple. And things worked out pretty good. And I was really happy that we could do all this. But what really, really helped was when I got it all put together. Let me get this other slide up. Somehow it didn't come up on that one. We'll bring it over here. I was working stations front to back that was just unbelievable with not very much power. That was the other part. But there again, I had this phased array. It cost me all of about maybe $100 because why? Because I had all of the coax. I just had to do a little bit more and the phasing harness. And so we made all this stuff work. And I was really intrigued by what we were learning from these guys. So one of the things about it is you guys and gals, you can do this and you can do it really easy. Let me get the other thing up here. Come on, it's not doing what I wanted to do tonight, but we'll make it happen. There we go. Okay. The switch I used came from Martin Jew, MFJ. It worked fine, but they all have them. So, in fact, DX Engineering's got a really neat one. But let's take a look and see what we can come up with finally going to work.
Completed the installation of a 75-meter phased array antenna system consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directly from east to west, we use a delay line of 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried. And just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do. Mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after you done mow it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm gonna have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it. Because if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it gets looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now, and
The system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
Yeah, well, I see they introduced big display on it, and I don't know if that is their form of portable, or what that is. Your wire that hooked up to your computer, and then did you use your handheld to go through it?
Here's some great sounding AM stations, and we were getting about 20 dB front to back.
When the leads drop off, I'll start using it. Daryl, purchasing digital audio recorder. I need to do that too. That'd be nice to have. And I was going to mention to you too about your pictures with Fifi. I had sent that out to a few friends, and one of my cousins.
Any questions about how it works? Oh, I'm telling you that it's an amazing thing. And like so many, I thought, oh man, this thing is going to be so much money. It wasn't. I had all this stuff. And yes, I had the space, but you know, like I don't have that much room. Do it on 40 meters. You only need 33 foot. Everybody's got 33 feet, I think, or pretty close. And I'm working on a presentation about antennas. I did a thing when I first came back on the air in 1976. Every night, I had a group of 4 guys on 7240, passed my advanced license, and I was going crazy. We put up a reference antenna, 40 meters, and then every night I came on with a different configuration on another tower. I had them all different heights. I had them all different configurations, lollygagged here, there, inverted V's. What was intriguing about it, you know, you have an antenna, you say, well, I think I'll take, I'm up here about 30 feet. I think I'll take it up to 45. No, it works better at 33. Really? It's all harmonics. Remember the pipe organ thing that I learned? It's all about harmonics. 33, 66, 33 apart, 66 high. You got yourself a real super 40 meter phased array. One of the things I did, I do not like rotary switches. And so my switch box was that, but I soon got out of that one. I went to Antique Electric Supply. I have a lot of guys say, you're crazy, Hyle. You can't buy all these old parts. You can buy every part you want from Antique Electric Supply in Mesa. Those are Les Paul guitar switches. So instead of that rotary, I have east-west for 75, east-west for 40. Work great. I use them here in the station for the other rigs. I use them for switching antennas. The colored ones are for the different radios. It's fantastic stuff. And so these are all things that we need to know about. One thing I want to do, I have a wonderful little demo to talk about bandwidth. It's all about putting your power where you need it. And we learn from the scientists about 2.5K, how important that is. If you'd like, I'll run by that again. I'm going to take 2.5 out. There you are. It's very boomy, bassy. I hear a lot of signals, and even worse. What are you guys trying to do? We're not DJs, we're communicators. And we can have a very nice signal. We don't knock out all the bass, but I need 2.5. I'm going to bring it back. But pay attention here. It sounds like I turned off the bass, but I didn't when it comes up to 2.5, because audio is like a teeter-totter. And you need that 2.5K. Well, here's the other point. You hear contesters and DXers, and they are so terrible sounding. But wait a minute. I was the guy that designed the element, remember? 100,000 of these have been built since it would have been about, when would we start that? 80, 84. Well, it isn't terrible sounding. It's putting your signal where you need it. Where do you need it? 2.5. I rolled everything off in these DX elements. And you talk to some of these guys, they'll tell you that's their tool. That's their secret tool, is that element, because they don't have to do much. I already did it for you. But here, I'll put it in graphic form. Think about this balloon. The air in here is RF. And we set out to do our bandwidth, nice, smooth, so on. And a lot of your power is down here in the low end. But what happens if we narrow that up, either by transmitter bandwidth or equalization or the right microphone to do this? Now what happens? Well, what's going to happen is all of that RF is going to end up in that window. You opened it with the 2.5 equalizer. You opened it with the band spread is only 2.4, so that kind of narrows it down into here. All of your power's here. You're the strongest guy in a pileup because everybody else's RF is down here. This isn't some kind of game, man. It's the best way that I can prove to people that we need to think about adjusting our transmitter audio. It's so important. And a lot of, I'll just let Bill tell me I sound good. Forget that. You be the engineer. Listen to yourself and a pair of headphones on another receiver. That's the way to do it. Put your transmitter to dummy load. Put a little antenna, hang a wire off of it. But you're going to find out the minute you start punching up 2.5, your signal's going to sound louder. Now, I got another thing to tell you about, and you're not going to forget this. When you're watching television and you hear commercials, and some of them are in your face, I didn't turn the volume up. What happened? You know what happened? The engineers know about the 4,000 scientists, and they crank the heck out of 2.5 in their equalizers, so that thing comes screaming at you. This is true. I know. I worked at KMOX. I worked at Channel 2 and Channel 5 here, and they do that. Don't tell me they don't, because I watched them. You son of a guns. Think about it. The next time you hear a loud commercial, bet you don't hear a lot of bass. See, I give you all these things when you're going to sleep tonight and you're having trouble sleeping. All these things are going to go, wow, I never thought about that. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with all of this stuff. In 1985, the North California DX Club called me and said, hey, we need a headset. Because they had been taping my elements to their Supros or whatever. It was a Southern, it wasn't a Northern, it was a Southern. I'll be okay. And so I built the first headset. It was a BM10. And it's still here. It's a great headset, extremely lightweight, but it's got all the talk power you could possibly want. But then in the last few years, I'm seeing guys trying to copy David Clark and doing a very, very bad job of it because they don't know about the 4,000 scientists. They're not into audio. They're in race cars or airplanes. Fine. Get out of my face. So I started building. It took me a couple years to do this. This is the Primo headset. No questions about it. So many things I answered that you ask for all the time. First of all, I got a separate jack that your logger can plug into here, or just somebody listening. You don't need a bunch of Y cords. You can do that right there. I have a balance control. If you have a hearing imbalance, no problem. You can balance a left to the right. And The elements are interchangeable. This has the DX element. We got a rag chew element. We got a broadcast element. Take those two screws out, unplug it. Bingo. Plug this little baby. Away you go. No problem. But now comes the goodie. The only company on the planet that for the past 12 years has phase reversal. Why would you have phase reversal in a headphone, you idiot? Well, I learned this when I worked at Skywalker Ranch. I was very blessed. Tom Holman, Tomlinson Holman, THX. He's from Illinois. He's an Illinois boy. I was his first boss when he came out of the University of Illinois. Had a few months before he started a real job, and he worked for me. We were working on one of those consoles. Well, when I got into the home theater business, I would go out to Skywalker and help him teach the audio stuff to the home theater dudes. And then one day I was watching, they had this huge orchestra, and they're recording it. Stereo microphone setups, left and right. Harrison Ford was over there in a glass box. Okay. And then all of the trains and airplanes and the sound effects, they were coming from a studio behind it. They would dub them in. Now I'm going to give you something else to think about while you're trying to go to sleep. You have a CD player, you have a DVD player, you have a direct TV box, you have a cable box. You only have two connections, white and red, right? Left and right, right? How are you getting 4 channels out of that? Do you ever think about that? Where are they? There's only 2 connections, and yet you have left, center, right, rears. How's that happen? It happens because of phasing. I told you it's my favorite subject. I could spend all night giving you things like this. What they did, these guys, the orchestra, were in the normal, not out of phase, but they took those 2 signals, they put them, the center channel is out of phase. But down here, I just proved that to you. If it's out of phase, it's not here. And the same thing back here. It's out of phase. It's not here. Wow. And it was Ray Dolby. Remember, I had a picture with Ray and I. When he first came out with ProLogic, I was using him in some of my demonstrations in the consumer electronics show, all that. That's how it works. ProLogic figures out those 2 out of phase and brings them all together. Well, a long way around, but Heil, what's that got to do with this? It's got everything to do with this. It's the #1 tool along with this. You can move signals around in your head by reversing the phase. So you go in a pile up and you hear this little bitty weaky guy back here, hit my phase reversal. He comes up front. And you go have a conversation with the big boy DXpedition and contest. They love it. It also gives you listener fatigue. It takes it away. It's a breath of fresh air, because when you do that, it's a whole different platform. So it's really, really cool. And the element, I'm so proud. This element, does it sound good? Nope, it's terrible. Well, why do you build it? You know why. We've been talking about it all night. I mean, it's just terrible sounding, but it's all 2.5. All the power I have is right here. Don't forget this little guy. It's right where I need it. I don't have to equalize. It's all done when we built and designed this. And it just makes me so happy that I'm able to help so many guys and girls. And in closing, I have one more thing for you to think about. We tailor the transmitter. You know, we do all that. But what about the receiver? We need to get increased speech articulation, lower the distortion, my gosh, do we ever, lessen the listener fatigue, and equalize the receiving signal. Nobody ever talks about it. Well, yeah, I got it in my receivers. Yeah, it's really terrible. The equalizer in these transceivers, $15,000 or whatever, forget it. They don't work very well. What I discovered, because I'm a nut for parametric EQ, we needed to build an equalizer, do shelving on at 160 so you can increase or decrease. That's simple. And up at 6K, you can increase or decrease. I always decrease it a bit and just leave it. I never touch it. It gets rid of some of that noise and crap. But what about the powerhouse? The mid-range, you can move it from 400 to 4K. Look down at the bottom of the little graph. The transmitter bandwidth, it covers right through where we need it. But you're going to discover when you hit 2.5K, whoa, magic happens. I built the speaker, got Paul Klipsch written all over it. All over it. He taught me years ago. We built, I don't know how many tens of thousands of speakers for all of our road stuff. We built all of that stuff. It would take a speaker outside and do a free air cone resonance. Then you treat the cabinet to be at that frequency. So there's no distortion. The speaker hardly moves and everything is great. The dynamic range is wonderful. And so you're in wonderful shape when you get that all matched. And look at the magnet on this thing. It's a 5-inch speaker and magnet's almost that big, but that's okay. We're good. We're good. And then we put a tweeter, a 3.5-inch tweeter, and that really was super duper. The titanium tweeter. But the power amp, it's not 1 watt. I get all, don't get me started. We get these powered speakers. Oh boy, they're a whole 3 watts. Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to tell you something dead out. And I know this because I work with these guys. Every transceiver out there, 15,000 to 400 bucks, has a 1 or 2 watts at 10% distortion. They don't care about it. I had one of the engineers at one of the big companies, I'm not going to name them, said, oh, well, we don't care. The distortion's covered up by noise anyway. Are you kidding? You're out of your mind. So I did something about it. And what I did took me 2 years to do this. I came up with the parametric receive audio system. And it does all of that and plus. First of all, it has 2 headphone amps. Left and right? No, it could be. That's really up to you. You can have an operator and a logger, but I'm getting so many reports from guys. It gets very, very sensitive. Some of these guys, they almost start crying because they say, you gave me my radio back. I finally can understand because they're hard of hearing on one side or the other. You can balance it out left or right. The next little guy is a record out. That's how I make these signals you're going to hear. You come out of there and go right into your computer. You don't need Y chords. But then we have the 3 bands, as I just explained. So let's go take a listen. I recorded some things off air, and these are signals that they're just regular guys talking. And it was so wonderful that I could find the kind of signals that I wanted to demonstrate all this. First of all, we're going to start all this stuff flat. It'll be the way you hear it. And I'm not going to touch 6K much. If I do, I'm going to roll it off a little bit. Let's all start flat. Even at flat, you're going to hear an incredible difference when we get up to the good part. Let's see here. This first one that comes up is kind of interesting. This is a D104. It's all highs. Let's put some lows in it.
Well, I wonder if I can copy that at about 30 words a minute. And so I speeded up the tape, and sure enough, I can copy it. I had a lot of fun.
There it is the way you hear it.
I thought, well, I wonder if I can copy that Had about 30 words a minute, and so I speeded up the tape, and
That's the great
sure enough, I
G104.
can copy it.
But here we go. Listen up. The way you hear him.
Echo India 8 Bravo, Lima Bravo, PI-ATLB calling in by.
Here's the way you hear him.
For
That's the gain.
Sierra, Germany.
Flat.
Hope I have it right. Very good day to you from Ireland. My name is Lima, India Alpha Mike, over.
Here it is again. Here it comes.
Echo India 8 Bravo, Lima Bravo, PI-ATLB calling in by.
Do we have to say any more? No. It is one of the most incredible things that I've ever encountered. Yes, I designed it, but that's why I designed it, because nobody else wants to do that. And it's wonderful. I mean, super wonderful as to what we can do with audio if it's adjusted and done right. And you can use it with, I use 2 receivers into it. It's got, actually has 3 inputs. You can do all of that. But the last thing I want to show you is something that you wouldn't even think about, but I do all the time. Connectors. Oh my gosh. The connectors are terrible. First of all, every manufacturer, but us, use a connector from the Foster company. And what it is a little bitty thing. Look at the ring on that thing. It's, oh, maybe what, a 1/4 inch. You almost need needle nose to use it. And forget any kind of cable clamp. When they do have it, they put heat shrink around it because their cable clamp does not meet the criteria of the adapter. One fits all. No, it doesn't. And so I did something about it. I went to Foster and I got a release on the patent. And we have a 1/2 inch ring. It's really nice to tighten it down, even like a TS2000 where it's recessed, no problem. But the cable clamp, we build our own wire. And so the cable clamp was designed to fit that wire and that small one. That's the push to talk output for your hand switch, your foot switch. And they work. They're cable clamps that squeeze down into the soft rubber. We design our own wire. Every wire out there is, oh, it's terrible. It's junk. I know you're going to say, hi, he's off that. No, go check it out. It's junk. It's 26 gauge wire. It's not balanced. It's one conductor. And the shield, if you go to separate it, you end up with about 3 strands because it all comes apart. What I did is I actually designed this. I used a piece of, it was coax RG58 from 1958 that I had, 100% shield. And I stuffed 18 gauge wire into the prototype. That was hard to do, but I did it. It was only 4 inches long. But that's 18 gauge wire balanced because we use balanced microphones as much as possible. And then they're inside that shield. The blue and the red are carrying DC on the outside. If you put that all together like your cable, you have introduced DC right up against the sensitive AC. I have fixed more RFI problems by changing cable. Wouldn't you think these engineers would know that? I'm just a stupid ham. But I like to experiment a lot. Much of this is in my handbook. If you don't have this, you might want to get it. It's worthy of the $15 just for the last chapter. It's got all of these charts and graphs of different sizes of things, so on. And I didn't write this. I compiled it. Most of the things in here are 60, 70 years old from people, Paul Klipsch and Larry Burroughs, and the way it was supposed to be done. But somehow or other, our handbooks, you got to be an engineer to read them. And I was very blessed, very honored. We are the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's that quad console we built for Quadrophenia. That's one of the speakers for the monitors. Some of our power amps were modular power amps. The back side of it has the mixer we built for ZZ Top. And the first talk box, it's hard to see, but it's signed by Joe and for Peter. All in all, it's all ham radio. And I even told them behind me, they had that big sign they wanted to put. And they said, well, we want to tell everybody your education. I said, it's ham radio. No, we need to tell people where you learned all this. I said, amateur radio. I had to argue with them, but finally they listened. So, hey, ham radio's in the Rock Hall. And I received a PhD degree recently, an honorary from Mizzou. I barely made it through high school. I'm serious. My grades were just barely passing. I was making money. I was out playing. I didn't care. I was only there the required number of days. We charted it off on the calendar. I didn't need school. I guess I would have been a lot further along. But you know what? I wouldn't have helped as many people as I help. So I'm thrilled to be here. I hope I haven't bored you. I hope you learned something. Sorry about the boondoggle of getting my phased array up to you. Had to waste a minute there. But anyway, we're here for questions and anything, good or bad. Let me know what you think, and we'll see what we can do about answering them. I'm sure glad I'm here.
Michael, did you have a couple of questions that you saw in the chat room?
There's one. Jim Shaw had one reference to were they any settings? I'm sorry, let me move closer to the microphone after he's talking about got to get close to my PR40 here. Were they any documentation on your website for flex radios?
No, I don't have anything. I don't have a flex, and so I don't know, but it's the same thing. You go in and you look at what we've done. You just want to peak things at 2.5K and then feather them out, roll off some of that extreme low end. And you don't really have to do much. Just it's going to be into that 1500 to 3000 cycle. Just make that a nice little round curve and away you go. I got a really good friend of mine who's got several flexes. I need to do that because I'm not into that at all, but I need to do that for you guys. But it's real simple, as I said, just peak that at 2.5 and just kind of tailor it off. Not all the way down, just tailor it down a few decibel. You'll be okay.
That was the only one from the YouTube. So
I'll ask a question if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
James Inzer, XIA. Hi, Bob. You mentioned the frequencies, and you got my curiosity up when you mentioned the 705. I don't have one, but I looked up another ICOM radio, which does have some type of receive and transmit level equalizer adjustment. Yeah. They call that bass, maybe mid-range, and treble. Where would the 2.5K?
It's mid-range. It only has all the ICOMs. They just have bass and treble, and the bass sits at about 160, and the treble sits at 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, here, let me get it back up.
And I've yet to hear a 705 sound nice in the D-Star mode.
Oh, nothing sounds good in the D-Star mode. I hate to tell you that, but it's true.
You won't hurt my feelings.
there's the 7300. It has bass and treble. The transmit bandwidth is set at 100 to 2900. Punch up the treble a little. What you're doing is you're putting 3 dB at 2.5K. And the bass, you're rolling off things under 160. Now, if you want to go into contest mode, same thing. You have you're going to, first of all, set it 500 to 2500. So you've really notched out a lot in the bandwidth, transmitter bandwidth. But then you're going to roll the bass off -5. That's 160. It takes it all down. There's no bass there. Treble +5 at 2.5. The other thing you look at is this is 7610. It's the same thing, just a different. And all of the early ones, the Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, all that up to the 7800, they have that kind of graph. Set the transmitter bandwidth, and then you're -2 and +3. And we also, I don't know if I mentioned, but they asked me to build a microphone for them because they know what they had. Well, the ICM is the capital THE It is the answer to ICOM. Won't work on Kenwood, won't work on anything. ICOM. It comes with the cable, with the connector. I don't want you having to monkey with it at all. And it is a darling. A little over $100. And it is the best thing you can do to any ICOM. Really works great. But I hope that helps you on the where to set that EQ.
We did have one more question. Somebody typed in, Dennis, does your website have the better settings for most radios on it?
Yeah, well, we have all the pages like we went through tonight. It's all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, Kenwood. Yeah, and you just think a little bit about what we're doing, and you can do that to your own. But most of it is there. And if not, if there's something you don't understand, send me an email. Do not be shy. I go through sometimes 100 a day. I don't mind it. I'm here to help you. And I really, really love to help you. So, and if it really gets serious, I had one today. We'll get on Skype or Zoom, and we can do pictures, and we can do whatever. So I'm your guy. Don't feel shy at all. Let me know.
This is Dennis. I actually typed that in, and I do. Well, I have the Pro Set, and I'd have the boom mic and everything, and I'm actually ecstatic in the performance of them versus the standard Yaesu mics that I did have. So I just wanted to be sure that the settings were kind of hard to see on my end down here. I've got a 950, and so I'm going to go there and be sure that those settings that you showed there, I've got it in here, and then see if it makes any difference, because I live in an HOA like a lot of people here in the Orlando area do. And so for my antenna system, I'm actually using a set of MFJ ham sticks up about 23 feet. It works. I've worked all over Europe with them.
Yeah. When you go into the support page of Heil Sound, all things Yaesu, look at the FT950. That is the Primo page. What we have for the 950 is pretty much across all the line, but there's a lot written about the 950, and you'll get a lot from it.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. I like what I see behind you, but I bet, is that still with you?
No, I'll move a little bit out of the way.
Oh.
That was, I'm trying to think of the time frame. That was probably about 1977. It's a Drake TR4C with an RB4 MN2000.
Yeah.
Heathkit 614 monitor scope, and that was as a novice.
Wow, super stuff. Well, my stuff is, a lot of it's, not all of it, but most of it's with me. There's that 20A that I built in 1958, and there's a 600L down there. A no tune linear. Check this out, guys, if you don't know about that. It's an 813, half a kilowatt. The only knobs on it, it's a band switch and a meter switch. That's it. You don't tune it. It's no tune. They came out in 1955. And it really intrigues me because a lot of people get all awed about these multi-$1,000 no tunes. No, there's one right there. I drive it with this little guy. This is an amazing piece. It's called a Mars, made in Japan, 1955. It's a mobile transmitter for your 1955 Ford under the dash. It has two 6L6s and a 12AU7 speech amp. I was on it this morning. I take that and drive that 600L because that's class AB1. I get about 150 watts out of it, but I just love all this old stuff. And the Drake 2B is great, but the neatest receiver is the CM1 Mosley. That guy, where's it at? Right there. Carl Mosley. There's quite a story about that. I have a whole presentation on that and videos and stuff. So you ever need other stuff, call me and give me something, and you've had all this other stuff. We know about that. Then we'll just single onto one thing and make happen. I love it. Nice station. And you have trouble with that 950, you call me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did have one more question from a viewer on YouTube, Lou McFadden. He said since you don't like the rotary dial on your switch, that you made one with the toggle switches. What prevents you from selecting two at one time?
Me.
Anybody else have any questions?
I hear a big oops if you flip the wrong switch. What was I thinking?
Yeah, I mean, you take your time and you double check it, and you double check it again. So that's what you do. There's about 30 relays in this station to make it all work. I have a whole presentation on that, how this is all wired. It's kind of complex, but really basically simple once you get it. Lots of stuff. But it's not just a ham radio station. It's a laboratory where I design stuff for these manufacturers I work for. So there's, that's a lot of it. But I do get on the air. I'm on the air every morning, 9 a.m., 3885 a.m. bunch. And but I get on sideband later on in the night.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, Bob, you're a wealth of information. Appreciate you coming tonight and doing the presentation. We do hope that you and Sarah stay safe, and we can't wait to see you here soon. We hope to get to see you in Huntsville. And then, of course, we can't wait to see you, Sarah, and the gang, hopefully in February at Hamcation 2022.
Okay, well, thank you, guys. And yeah, as I said, you want to come back sometime, just pick it up, or I can come back and play a couple of concerts on that thing too.
Wow.
In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now. I do a show every Saturday night on WTWW. That's that 200,000 watt shortwave out of Nashville, 5.085, right above WWV. Do it 7 o'clock every Saturday night. And I record it here in my studio and have a lot of fun. Still playing.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody. This is great. I love Orlando. I love your club and all the things you do. You make it right. And I hope that other clubs will take a lead from you on all the things that you've been able to do there. Look forward to coming back. Look forward to getting some emails. Let's help you fix some things.
Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Definitely will have you back.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, guys, we got some other things we're going to go over. As everybody knows, we had elections, and I'll share a screen real quick with you. Results came in. I think everybody sees the right screen. So it looks like Bob Cumming got 55 votes, Tony got 43, James got 50, Frank Gerget's got 47, Dean got 53, Frank Tagalani got 52, and then Ed got 34, and Andy got 14. So the highest 6 is what elects the 6 directors for the next year. And so it looks like the directors are going to remain the same for the next year. So with that, Michael, can you do the poll real quick for elections? I had some questions. I know some people had some issues with the email that went out. So I got a poll, and just if you will, take a minute to answer. If you did vote, great. If you didn't, why didn't you vote and stuff? And I'd just like to get an idea of what how everybody felt about it. So we'll give it a few seconds and sit there and give everybody a chance to answer that's on the Zoom chat right now. For you guys that are on the YouTube live stream, unfortunately, you won't be able to vote on this one. So, but I'm trying to get an idea why some votes didn't come in, because there's only a third of the eligible voters are actually voted. So I'm trying to get an idea. So we'll let it stay up there for a few more seconds, and don't worry, nobody knows what you're answering. It's all anonymous. We're just trying to get an idea of why it didn't happen. So if you didn't get the ballot, I understand. It's not a foolproof system, but I'm just trying to get a better idea of what happened. So, Let's stay for about another 10 seconds to give everybody a chance, and then we'll go ahead and end that poll.
If
We only
there's
got
a,
two people.
Good.
We only got 2 people that hadn't answered it, so.
Okay.
if
Hey,
there's
you don't.
It automatically was thrown up in front of you folks, and so you just simply answer it, and then it goes away. And obviously, that's not a Heil mic that you're on, Rick.
Actually, it is, but it's just a messed up windscreen. I don't have an acoustic windscreen on it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go ahead and shut that one down, Mike. Appreciate it. You got to get a better idea what, and you can share the results with everybody.
If someone did not get a ballot because of email, is there a way that we can find out what happened? Send an email to membership or something.
Yeah, and this is why we always mention at the meetings, please, if your email has changed or you're not getting any emails from us, please let Rick know at membership@oerc.org. That's the only way we can make sure that we have the correct information for you guys. So congratulations to the candidates that did win. Thank you to Ed and Andy, obviously, for running for a position. You know, we do elections every year. We create the nomination, or excuse me, create the ballot in March to the vote for the April meeting. And so we'll be doing it again next year. And I appreciate everybody answering quickly on the poll for elections. I do have another one. We're going to talk real quick about field day. Again, OERC is planning field day, an in-person field day again this year at the fairgrounds, possibly at the social hall, maybe someplace else, depending on what's going on that weekend. And but Michael, you want to do the poll for field day? I have a question, and I just try and get an idea for planning purpose. Who all plans on coming to field day this year for if we do have an in-person event? So if you don't mind, if you just answer the questions, there's 3 different questions, and just answer those and we'll move along here. Does it start, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody's answered yet, but it started.
I'm hitting submit, but nothing's happening.
There we go. Now it's starting.
See, some people went to 3.
You have to answer all 3 questions before the submit button gets highlighted.
Okay.
Oh, there's a 3rd question. Oh. Is that what the scroll down bar means?
Yes.
It's not fair. I plan on going, but I don't plan on operating.
A little long of a drive for me.
Oh, come on, Jim. Come on down. Actually, it might be cooler in your neck of the woods. Who knows?
That third question
would be.
needs one. That third question needs one more option. Don't know the schedule yet in reference to work and so on.
Yeah, I have to agree on that because I may actually have family obligations that weekend.
I don't know if I'm working. That's really my main reason. Plus, I may be at another location.
And I know it's kind of early. I know some of you guys do work weekends and stuff like that. And I appreciate it very much. I just trying to get an idea for planning purpose. And I know there's only right now, we've run a little long tonight, but only 27 right now in the Zoom meeting. But I'll probably do something more in line with the going out on email and get an idea of how many people will attend. Just try and get an idea of what we're going to do.
How about the people that go to field day to do the setup? I didn't see a question on that.
Well, we didn't put the setup on there because we always seem to have lots of people for setup. I'm more interested in operators because operators in the past, we've always seemed to operate for the first couple hours, and then all of a sudden everybody starts slowly disappearing, and then we don't have operators. So I'm trying to make sure we have operators, obviously to operate the radios through field day. And if we're going to do a 24-hour field day like at we normally do, make sure we have enough operators throughout the night. So it's just non-scientific, just trying to get an idea. So Michael, you can go ahead and pull that one down. I appreciate it.
Everybody answered that one.
All right. And we'll talk more about field day next month, because I just want to move along real quick. So that way, I know we're already kind of running late, but a lot of great information in that presentation from Bob, and I really appreciate him taking the time to spend with us this evening. So we'll keep moving here. Another real quick, I just want to bring this to your attention. Although I have one question for Bob coming on this one in a second. So everybody's aware, there's been a tailgate that's been going on for a year or two now down on South Conway Road at the South Conway Road Baptist Church. He's K4 KDI's Jack is going to have another one coming up on June the 12th, which is a Saturday. The actual tailgate starts very early at 6 o'clock in the morning, runs to about noon. There was a lot of people that attended this past one in February, I think it was, Mike.
Yes.
February, January. I don't remember. Anyways, earlier this year, we are going to help Jack with a test session. I'm just not sure, Bob, what time was the test session going to start? Because he didn't have it on here.
We figured around 9-ish.
9-ish? Okay. Just want to make sure that we have it right, because we also put it up on our website this evening, and information on how to register to send an email to testing@oarc.org. So if you're interested in upgrading your license, or somebody that wants to take the technician exam to get their license, this is the information that you want to provide them, and we'll send this out to the membership here by email. We'll send this flyer out to everybody so they have it. And it's not till June 12th, so you got plenty of time. Okay, just moving real quick along. Michael, you want to give a hamcation update?
Yeah, just real quick, just let you know, we've wrapped up everything for the Hamcation special edition. To let everybody know that OARC has, after calculating everything from all the prize tickets and sale donations and the lanyard sales for donations, we will be giving donations to, I believe it's 12 local clubs, amateur radio clubs this year only, and those donations will be the same amount as they received in 2020. So we're able to do that, which comes out to, I believe it's right around $12,700, somewhere in that area, of donations going out to the 12 local clubs. So we're able to just make it for the same amount as 2020, which should help out a lot of the local clubs get through, since there really wasn't much meetings and stuff like that to actually do fundraising this year for them. So hopefully it helps. Everybody should be receiving those checks probably within the next couple of weeks. So everybody that's part of a club that we'll be sending them to, just let your leadership know that the check is going to be in the mail soon.
And that was to local clubs.
Huh?
And that was to local clubs, right?
Correct. I can name them real quick. Orange County Aries, Lamar's, Seminole County Aries, Deers, the CERT Ham Radio Group with Jerry, the CERT Group with Christy, Central Florida Repeater Association, the local QCWA, Bahia Shriners Radio Group, Radio Scouting, Florida Weak Signal Group, and Lake Amateur Radio Association.
Okay. And does anybody have any questions real quick for Michael? All right, moving forward. Just want to remind everybody, I sent out an email earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. Florida QSO party is coming up on April the 24th through the 25th. For more information on that, you can go to floridaqsoparty.org, and you can get all the information and how to register for it on that website. I'm going to go around to the clubs real quick, if you're on here, if you just want to give a quick update or anything that might be different from what you might have given before, please take the opportunity. If you don't have anything new or anything that's news breaking or any information you need to get out right now, just for the interest of time, we can just move forward. QCWA locally, are you on here? Anybody from it?
I think Rich is out in Tampa.
Okay. Nothing new yet then?
Nothing really. There is a national meeting coming up, and also the chapter meeting is coming up on Zoom this Thursday. Unfortunately, I have a dentist appointment. I won't be there.
Okay. And just give everybody an idea that the both the local QCWA and the national meeting is actually being sponsored both by Orlando Amateur Radio Club and Hamcation. So we're helping them out with Zoom and webinars and meetings and stuff to, since we already have the platform up and running. Anything from Lamar's?
John, if they don't have anything, I am going to do start Lamar's testing starting starting up, I think it's the 15th of this month, third Saturday of every month, ongoing at Seminole County Sheriff's Office. We will be doing testing. In the beginning, I want pre-registration so we can get the information. We can keep it down to a manageable group. So we are going to resume testing. Hopefully we can start OARC soon.
Bob, it's April 17th.
Go ahead.
It's April 17th.
Okay, I didn't have my calendar in front of me, so.
Yeah, I just pulled mine up.
All right, and I'll have more information in just a second on reference to OERC. I was just going to get through the rest of the club stuff first. Any from Jerry? Did you have anything new for CERT?
Not really. The city is still locked down, but we are continuing our weekly net, and we are still doing CodeNet. So we welcome anybody that wants to join in to join us, and be glad to have them. That's
Okay.
it, John.
I appreciate it. Christy and Bill, anything from Clarkona CERT? And don't forget that.
We started our meetings last month. This month's meeting, we're doing ham radio and the importance of it with CERT. Our state CERT, we're working with getting sponsors for presenters and things like that. Pretty much that's about it for right now.
We're also working for sponsors for the international.
Yeah,
national
for
cert.
national, we're working for national CERT too. So we're looking for presenters for that one as well.
Okay, and I know you gave me some information on that. If you don't hear from me soon, send me an email to remind me to get with you about that so I can talk to you about it.
Okay, I just sent it to Anna tonight, an email. And maybe she can forward it to you, or I can forward it, either one.
Yeah, either way, just reminds me I need to talk to you about that. So,
okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, Bobbin, CFRA.
Well, the Central Florida Repeater Association is still meeting the last Wednesday of each month at Perkins up in Winter Park at the corner of Forsyth University. We're having good turnouts. 15 people or so. Good little rag chew going on. We start meeting around 6. Actually, we get there around 6. John and Michael show up about 4, I guess, to get the back seats all set up. I don't know. And then about 7 o'clock, we hold a small impromptu meeting, and the repeater is downtown, 443075, standard PL. It's analog and fusion. You're more than welcome to use it and come to the meetings.
All right, appreciate it. And Ken, are you still on here for radio scouting?
I'm still here. So again, another thing on April 17th is we have, it's called Western Ho. We're teaching 500 Cub Scouts, CW, Morse code, their name. This is the same event we were planning last year that got killed for COVID. So this year we're going to try and go. I need more helpers. So if anybody's available on April 17th and would like to help some scouts learn how to type their name and learn SOS.
All right, can you give your email address so that way if anybody has it?
Yep. So send an email to me at my call sign, KN4 Mike Delta Juliet. So MDJ@gmail.com.
Okay. I just saw your message in reference to Bob. Yes, he's in the witness protection. All right. Yeah. Bahia, or the ham radio group for Bahia. I'm sorry. Lost my train of thought. Rod, are you on here yet?
Phone turns on. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. We're on. We don't have anything active right now. We haven't had a meeting yet. The COVID still got us concerned. So thanks very much. We'll keep you posted when something develops. And a great meeting tonight. Bob is excellent.
Yes, he is.
My farm in audio, my farm in electronics has been in audio, and I've worked with a couple of top engineers, and Bob is really top. So anyway, good night all. Thank you.
All right. And Weak Signal Society?
I don't think George is in here, but the beacons are on from 6 meters all the way up to 1.2 gig. Anything above that is off the air. We haven't gotten back up to the Hampton house to turn the rest of them on, but everything's good. If you got a receiver you want to check on 6 meters, 2 meters, 432, 222, they're all on the air, and 1.2.
Okay. Anybody from AMSAT on here?
I think Lou is actually in Facebook or YouTube, but not on here.
Okay, we can get an update from them if there's anything and pass it on to the club via email. See, Deers, Lara, Similaries, Oscularies. I'll just say real quick, Orange County areas, next meeting's coming up Monday night. If you're not a member and you are interested in joining or like information about our meeting, just send me an email and I'll forward you the information. All right, real quick, an update in reference to Orlando Amateur Radio Club's in-person meetings. We did notice today on the City of Orlando website that the Beardall Senior Center has reopened to a partial opening. We're finding out what that is. I'm sure it has all to do with the amount of people in the meeting, or if maybe they've only opened up a certain part of the facility, for example, the gym. We're going to find out, but I still anticipate sometime in mid to latter part of summer, us be able to start getting back together again. And Michael, is there one more poll that I had on there?
Yes.
If everybody could just take a minute that's still on here on Zoom, I'm just trying to get an idea on with the people that are on here who would be interested in going back to an in-person meeting if we were to hold them again, or would you rather do say no or undecided, whether you just haven't decided what you want to do? It's totally fine. I understand. So just give us an idea what for planning purposes.
And to let everybody know also, when we do go back to in-person, we're going to still do the Zoom also. So you still be able to participate in the meeting.
So
yes,
you're
definitely.
about, so the question is in regard to going back in like 3 months. Is that something like that?
Well, basically, yeah. If we found out, say, in 3 or 4 months from now, we're able to go back to have an in-person meeting, are you interested in doing the in-person? Would you rather not do in-person? And this is only your personal opinion of what you would decide, or have you not decided? And like Michael says, we would still do Zoom at the regular meetings. It might be just a little bit more difficult having a bigger crowd there trying to get everybody just into it, but we can at least make sure that you know what's going on from the meetings.
At a couple other clubs I belong to several other clubs. They're counting and taking light surveys or kind of informal. It hasn't really been written down, but sometimes it's just a showing of hands. It's who has been vaccinated. And that sometimes is a big influence. If other people know who's been vaccinated about having in-person meetings, that's a big influence in their decision-making.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to once we find out, once we can have in-person meetings again, what the requirements are, then we will go with those type of questions. I don't want to sit there and anybody feel like they're obligated to tell us if they had a vaccination or not. It's obviously their choice whether they want to give up that information. But if it's something that helps us get back together, we'll cross that bridge once we get to it. So I'm just trying to get an idea, so that way, in case I get a call from Beardall and asking, how many people are wanting to come back to an in-person meeting, I can give them, and like a percentage. 70% says they want to come back to do an in-person meeting, and then we can find out what the requirements are. That's all we're doing tonight. I'm just trying to get information from you guys in case we get the call from Beardall. So, all right. With that, let me just go around to the board members real quick with any other information that they might have or want to talk about real quick. And to Michael.
Only thing I had, I might have missed it because I was trying to do multiple things. Did you find out about the time for the testing?
Yes, he said around 9 o'clock.
Okay, 9 to noon?
9 to noon, or when they get done.
Well, I put noon because that's when the tailgate actually ended. So,
right.
All right, it's good. It's up on the website.
Okay. Let's go to Anna.
I don't have anything.
Okay. And since Dean's right there with you.
I just want to thank everybody for their support, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Bobbin?
Nothing more, just a great presentation by Bob Heil.
Yes, it was. Bob C.
Like Bobbin said, great presentation by Bob Heil. And also, if you talk to Beardall, find out if and when we can begin testing down there.
I will. That's the whole point. So I'm doing some inquiries.
We can have a meeting. Maybe we can do testing down there.
Definitely. All right. Tony, you still on?
Nothing much here, John. Good meeting. We love Bob, and hope to see him again soon.
All right. James?
Nothing to add, other than I noticed Bob's red tennis shoes really stuck out in the presentation. He
All right.
must have been quite an interesting character in his youth.
Man, the stories he must have, I tell you. All right. Frank G.
No, nothing else. Really enjoyed the presentation.
Okay. Frank T is not here. Ed, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you want to say anything real quick?
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. Also, I enjoyed being part of the competition for a spot on the board of directors, and maybe next year I will. But congratulations to you all who did get voted back in, and looking forward to working with you this year.
All right. Appreciate it very much. And also just a reminder to everybody, if you have something that you want to get posted into the listening post, make sure you send it to Ed in time. Maybe of a tailgate, or maybe of something else going on in the neighborhood, amateur radio related. Send that information to Ed so he can get it into the next edition of the newsletter that goes out. Typically, we try to get it out right around the end of the month to the first of the month, right before the next OERC meeting. So make sure you get that information to them so we can get it posted. We like to get more articles, more information in that newsletter. So, and again, Ed, I appreciate it real quick. I appreciate everything that you've done for the newsletter, get that out and keeping me on my toes.
It's a pleasure working with you all.
Michael?
Also, one thing I had also, just everybody remember about the Traders Net. I know it's been going good. I know I haven't been on there recently, but just a reminder, it is Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock on 146.76. Bob's been running it, Bobbin, and I know it's been having some good turnouts, some good items come up on it. And just to let everybody know, we are starting to put up a lot of the silent key stuff that the club has tucked in on there also. So get on there, check in. Even if you don't have nothing, check in just for the numbers and listen. You might find a good deal out there.
All right. Appreciate that information. And just as a reminder, as I do every month, if any of your information has changed, contact information, including email, make sure you sit there and let Rick know at membership@oerc.org. It's important for us to be able to reach you, especially for different things like we just did with the elections. So it's just key when if you change your email address, make sure you let us know what it is. Even if you have a update your call sign, some guys go after vanity calls or a different call of some sort. If you update that information, please let us know so we can keep our database up to date. All right. Finally, before we go, I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending tonight. Thank you again to Bob Heil. I think he might have already disconnected, but it was a great presentation, a lot of information. And we look forward to him coming back to a future meeting and doing maybe something on, like he said, something different. He mentioned he's doing an antenna presentation, working on an antenna presentation. So that could be pretty good. Our next meeting is Wednesday, May the 5th. So at 7 o'clock, it will at this point still be virtual. I will say that once we go back to an in-person meeting, we will start at 7:30 again. But since we're doing virtual, I thought we'd just start a little earlier and with the anticipation of trying to get done a little bit early. Again, tonight's meeting ran a little bit late, but a couple times we did get done early, and this time we ran over a little bit. So appreciate everybody hanging out. If there's nothing else, if anybody has any questions, please feel free. We'll be on here for a few minutes and allow anybody to ask any questions and stuff. We are going to get ready to stop the YouTube live stream at the close of the meeting.